Today, with the first pick, we're doing a live mock draft. The race for QB1 is wide open. And after week one of the NFL season, some teams are going to have to make some hard decisions about the quarterback situation. We're here to help, Rick. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's Rick Spielman. And that's CBS Sports NFL Draft Analyst Josh Edwards. This is episode 179. I wish it was 159. Rick, before we get going, how many days to the 2025 NFL Draft?
Josh, I know you haven't been on the show in a while, so very excited to get you back on again. But as you know, I have one role in this podcast is to tell you that there are 224 days left until the 2025 NFL Draft.
Hey, Josh, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. It has been a while. I've found myself seeking words of affirmation elsewhere because I'm not getting it from Rick on a daily basis. So happy to be back with you guys. Happy to be talking about some football because we are well underway in the college football season now.
I like to consider Rick the therapy dog of this podcast. As you guys both know, I had to go make an emergency dental visit, and Rick gave zero craps about my well-being. I'm doing fine, Rick, just so you know.
Yeah, that's fine. Just suck it up, will you? Take an aspirin, suck it up, and do the show.
I hustle back to do the mock draft because, Rick, you can never do enough mock drafts. Do us a favor real quick, too, before we get going. Thumbs up on YouTube. Like us wherever you like us. Give us a 5-star review, Rick. There's 5 stars. You click the 5-star next to the Apple Podcast or the Spotify.
And then put in your player.
And put in your player. That's right. And Debo informs me you already got some names coming in. So we'll revisit those. Keep them coming. Happily evaluate them. Go from there. All right.
Can I make hey, Josh, just so you know, you haven't been on the show in a while. So Debo, our fine producer, made a climb up the ivory tower. And so now he oversees all this stuff. And then he just happens to come down for this the last couple of times, which is a little bizarre to me. But I also know Debo is behind producing the show because as I prepared for this insanely early mock draft, that there was no rules put into place. And I can't stand it when Debo comes in because he doesn't lay out. So here's the rules that I did.
Okay, what rules do you have?
Okay, I am basing this off of week 2 of the college season and week 1 of the NFL. That's it. So This is going to change. But if the draft was tomorrow and what we've seen from the college guys in week 2 and what we see in the first week in the NFL, this is what it's based off of.
You got it. You're getting it.
I know, but Debo said it in an email.
If you got to stick to that, then you better be drafting a quarterback for the Bengals and stick to that.
That's right.
Don't be bending your own rules.
Yeah, you walk yourself into that trap, Rick. All right, let's get to it. And by the way, I tried to look ahead and foresee any Rick Spielman potholes with the instructions, so I sent out the list of names as we will have them drafting. And I mentioned that because first up, Carolina Panthers on the board here as we're in the NFL Mock Draft Database Simulator. And because Josh's guess, I was going to let him go first, but then I said, based on Rick's rules, Panthers picking first. I went back and watched Bryce Young's throws. Sweet mercy alive. There's a lot going on that ain't great. It looked a lot like last year, just different faces on the sidelines there, Rick. I'm going to let you make the first overall pick for the Carolina Panthers. And just so people know who are listening, these are reverse Super Bowl odds as laid out by CBS Sportsline. So if you have any issues about where your team is picking, go yell at RJ White. Otherwise, we're just going on Vegas's expectations that these teams make the Super Bowl in reverse order. The Carolina Panthers on the clock. Rick, you asked for it, you got it. Are you going to adhere to your instructions, or are you going to draft a left tackle?
Well, you can look at left tackle. I wouldn't go offensive line right here. I, would seriously consider the edge rusher since Burns left and went to New York. They got Clowney and DJ Johnson. Their defense looked atrocious this past week. So common sense says go with defense, but when do we use common sense on this show?
Never.
So after Bryce Young's performance, 13 of 30, 161 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 4 sacks, and you watched the tape, it was horrendous. The number 1 overall pick based off of what I've seen in the first 2 weeks, Quinn Ewers, quarterback, Texas.
Wow.
You asked for it, Debo. You got it. Man, I don't want to make this a whole thing about Bryce Young, but his footwork's worse this year than last year, Rick.
Yeah, well, this is going to change, but if we're going off of what we've seen today and off what we've seen week 1 and how Ewers came off and the way he played at Michigan, I'm going with Ewers.
Any consideration about Shedeur or Carson or anyone else?
Yeah, but I thought last week Ewers was the number 1 rated quarterback on our Tuesday podcast, so I'm going to stick with what we saw.
I agree. I don't have any pushback. Hey, Josh, right now, who is your quarterback 1?
I did watch Quinn Ewers from the Michigan game. I think he's made a lot of strides in terms of his decision making. Looks very comfortable. I haven't quite made the switch from Carson Beck yet. I'm still in that boat for now. I'm trying to not fluctuate week by week as much because
you're on the wrong podcast, buddy.
You're on the wrong podcast.
A lot of these teams are not playing very good teams early in the season. Of course, Michigan somewhat being an exception, not quite the force that we're accustomed to seeing from them. But Quinn Ewers, I think, is certainly deserving of that number 1 pick. I just currently have not made that change.
All right. Won't hold it to you. Great news, though. You're the Giants here at number 2. And guess what? You can take whoever you want to take and probably most likely a quarterback, but it's up to you. Josh, you were on the clock, sir.
Yeah, I was a little concerned because when Rick started going down the path of taking a quarterback, I'm not exactly sure where that was going to leave me. I did not think I would be taking the second quarterback here in this draft, but that's exactly what I'm doing because I think you have to make a change if you're the Giants. Daniel Jones has not inspired confidence within that building, and it is time for a change. So I'm taking Carson Beck, the quarterback from Georgia, with the number 2 overall pick.
And to your point, Josh, Carson hasn't done a whole lot because they haven't played anyone. This week they play Kentucky. Is that right?
Yeah, and he should do quite a bit this week.
So
Carolina put a whooping on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, not pretty.
So, all right. So is that game in Kentucky or in Georgia?
It's in Lexington, yeah. So
Are you going to be
a
there?
road game for Carson Beck. I will not be there.
Okay.
But there's going to be a lot of NFL scouts there because there's a lot of talent on both of these teams. We just need to see Kentucky rise to the occasion, and maybe they give Beck a little bit more of a challenge this week.
All right. I love it. Only thing saving Kentucky now is Will Levis in the time machine. Not going to happen. All right. Next up, the New England Patriots. So, Rick, tell me what you think of this. I saw a report where the Patriots are tailoring the scout team to some extent to allow Drake May to get first-team reps, and I saw another report that he's getting 30% of the first-team reps. How unusual or common is that for a rookie quarterback who's not playing right away?
No, I think that's just part of their plan on trying to develop him. So he's not just running scout team cards, with the 2s against the number 1 defense. So I'm sure they have some kind of plan in place on how they're implementing his development. And it sounds like that's what they're doing.
Okay, so don't read too much into that other than they're just trying to bring him along at their pace.
Yeah.
Okay, next up. Oh, man, the New England Patriots. Not taking a quarterback, obviously. I think left tackle makes the most sense. I'm intrigued by Tedderell McMillan, but not at number 3. I watched Kelvin Banks yesterday against Michigan. He had a handful of reps against Mason Graham. He got the best of Mason Graham in those reps, both in pass pro and as a run blocker. I think he's a little better pass pro than run block right now, but I love him. I'm picking Kelvin Banks, the junior, at number 3, left tackle out of Texas. Does that mean you like it, Rick, or you love it?
Ugh.
Who would you have taken?
I'm not divulging that. That wasn't my pick.
You can grunt and groan, but you can't.
I don't want people to email me on how crappy of a pick it was. You take your own medicine.
I can't. I welcome that medicine. Who's your OT1 right now, Josh?
It's Will Campbell.
Okay.
It's close for me, but it is Will Campbell at this particular point in time, and that may be foreshadowing a little bit to future decisions. But we will not go down that path.
You realize Rick is picking next, right? All right, Rick, you're up. You're the Denver Broncos. They have some needs as well. Not a quarterback. They have Bo Nix, but needs elsewhere, mostly on offense. What are you thinking?
Well, I could see receiver pretty easy. They have Sutton, right? Josh Reynolds, Mims, no one else really, Troy Franklin, who they drafted, but they can easily go with receiver here, but I couldn't find a receiver to take that high. So they had a very porous run defense versus Seattle last week. They ran up and down the field on them. I understand They signed John Franklin Myers from the Jets, but still didn't play as well on defense. So based off of what I seen last week, and I know you're going to say, what the hell are you doing, Rick? Because they took your boy, Mr. Murphy, who, oh no, Seattle took Mr. Murphy.
Yeah.
Broncos need someone like that. So I'm going with Mason Graham, D tackle from the University of Michigan.
I don't hate that. And that's too high for a wide receiver, at least right now. And I know we talked pre-season about how high scouts are and Rick Spielman is on Mason Graham. Again, I thought Kelvin Banks had the best of them, but they moved him up and down the defensive line. I haven't watched him specifically from that Texas game, so I ain't going to hate on that, and I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's what's called being positive, Rick. All right, Josh, foreshadow what's coming next. The Washington Commanders. I'm not sure how Brandon Coleman did in his debut, the rookie out of TCU. But, Josh, do you think that the offensive line can improve further? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, again, I tipped my pick a little bit by having to share my OT1, but I will say that Will Campbell would be the pick for me here. Brandon Coleman, in an ideal scenario, is going to develop into their left tackle of the future, but that's not a position you can mess around with. If you have a quarterback of the future like Jaden Daniels, you need somebody there that you're going to feel comfortable with long-term. And that's why I'm leaning towards Will Campbell in this position. Now, maybe there's another opportunity for Coleman to play somewhere else along that offensive line. I think they have some other needs there as well as other needs across their roster. Edge rusher is one of them. I would have considered one of those vaunted edge rushers at this position as well. But I think for me, investing in Jaden Daniels is the best thing that you can do with a pick this early.
Yeah, I get that. You okay with that, Rick?
Yeah.
That's a yes.
Mm.
Rick is ready for nap time. All right, next up, Tennessee Titans at number 6. So, Shedeur Sanders is still out there. That's a joke. Will Levis had a tough go of it second half of that game, so he's got to quit taking hits and throwing stupid interceptions. We talked about that on Tuesday, Rick. But in terms of the Titans, I think offensively, I like where they're at. Defensively, the question comes down, do I want to go best edge rusher or best cornerback? And since he was my number one person on my board, I think number one on your board too, maybe, Josh, I could be wrong, but I'm going to go Michigan cornerback Will Johnson, who's been first game, they targeted him a little bit till he got that pick 6. So we'll see how he continues to grow into that role, but I think he has a chance to be special. You okay with that, Rick?
No.
Josh, how about you? You okay with it?
Yeah, I'm good with it. I think he's an incredibly sound.
The corner from got Snead, right, from Kansas City.
Who's the other corner?
Awazu.
Yeah. You don't think he's replaceable, Chidobe?
No, I think he's a good corner. If it was my pick, not that I would know anything.
How would you know anything?
Always take a pass rusher. Who they have at pass rusher? I think that's a bigger need. I would have leaned towards an edge rusher.
I get it. I'm not mad at you, even though you're mad at me. All right. Well, Rick, the great news is there's more pass rushers for you, even though the Raiders may not need a bunch of pass rushers, but you're on the clock here at number 7.
Oh, this is a no-brainer.
Is it going to be?
Shedeur, where are you? Come on down. Shedeur Sanders. I finally get my franchise quarterback. I always thought that Prescott was going to end up there if they didn't extend him, but that's a pipe dream now.
Yeah,
so I have to go get one, and I'm going to go with Shedeur Sanders.
Any thought, and I think I know the answer to this, but just for the sake of conversation, any thought of Cam Ward here?
Of who?
Cam Ward out of Miami.
He's not even in the first round yet.
Stop it. Eric Galco told us to put him in the first round now. You're going to get there.
All right. Well, let me get there. I'm not there.
Hey, Josh, where are you in Shedeur? Great game 1 against North Dakota State. He had no chance at all. No one had a chance behind the offensive line against Nebraska.
Yeah, a little bit of up and down, which is kind of what we expect from all of these quarterbacks, or what we have seen from all of these quarterbacks thus far this season. I don't think that we have a Caleb Williams or Drake May to this point in the season that has distinguished themselves as that obvious number 1 overall pick. So I think there's a lot of room for jockeying in this quarterback class. Sanders obviously had a good week 1, down in week 2. Now, how does he battle back from that adversity? I think that's something that's going to be telling moving forward, because right now I don't feel comfortable taking him in the top half of the first round.
Wow.
I just don't personally see it. But he's definitely going to be in the conversation. And at the end of the day, I would not be surprised if he were in this position.
Hey, Rick, as a GM, how do you evaluate a player like Shedeur who's on a losing team with a terrible offensive line and morale may be down by the time this thing is over? It feels like there's finger pointing only right around the corner.
That he does on tape. Like I said, he plays a little bit of street ball, tries to always look for the big shots down the field. But if he can get in rhythm on time, there's no question about the arm strength and the accuracy when he does have time. So I have no issue with that. And Josh, I disagree with you. How can the Raiders not take a quarterback? Because Minshew sure in the heck didn't look like the answer in week 1.
Maybe Josh likes someone else. Who
No, from that perspective, I have no disagreements. It's just a matter of the value, and we don't know what the free agent class is going to look like either, Rick. Maybe there's somebody out there that they like. So there's some other possibilities. Maybe you get a guy on day 2. Maybe you trade for Spencer Rattler. That's possibly out there as well. So there's a lot of options available to the Raiders if they don't feel comfortable taking a quarterback here.
Josh sounds like
a coup meeting with Debo and Ryan Wilson while I've been sitting here. You guys had a coup meeting from 10 to 11:30, I think.
I wish I would have.
Yeah, Ryan didn't actually go to the dentist. We just had a secret meeting before we met here.
Meeting. Let's beat up on Rick again.
By the way, Josh sounds like someone who has been informed by Coach Prime that he will not be attending Colorado games the way he's talking about Shedeur. So just keep an eye out for that. All right, number 8, Arizona Cardinals on the clock. I think they need a wide receiver 1 based on how they use Marvin Harrison Jr. That will change, of course. Josh, that defense could stand some shoring up, but maybe you have your eye somewhere else.
No, I'm looking on the defensive side of the ball. Jonathan Gannon, of course, that's where his roots lie. I think they did a lot to invest in that side of the ball a year ago, obviously with as many picks in the top 100 as they had. But there's more to be done on that side of the ball. So I did not think I was going to be in a position to take potentially the best edge rusher in this draft class. And I think looking at what the Eagles have gone for in the past, a guy like James Pierce Jr. From Tennessee is kind of where they might be looking, a little bit more twitched up than a Michael Williams who has missed some time with an ankle injury here of late. So James Pierce Jr. just gives them a little bit more in the pass rush game that they've sorely lacked.
James Pierce Jr. I like it. Next up, Indianapolis Colts, number 9. I mean, this team, edge rusher jumps off at me here. James Pierce is gone, but Michael Williams is still there. But, I mean, they have Quiddy Pay. They obviously drafted Leatu Latu. Rick, I think I'm going to go interior defensive line.
Did you prepare for this show at all?
What'd you say?
Did you prepare for this show at all?
Why would I take an edge rusher here?
I'm not saying take an edge rusher.
Who would you take?
I'm not going to tell you. It's your pick.
I'm taking who I want to take, and then you can tell me who you're going to take. This guy is, and I actually want to hear what Josh thinks about him because he watches him closely. And we talked about him summer scouting. Deion Walker, tier defensive lineman out of Kentucky. He's been pretty good against Southern Miss and South Carolina, but as you point out, those two teams aren't necessarily game changers. Anyway, I'm taking him to shore up the interior defensive line. Rick, tell me first what you would do, and then I'll get Josh's thoughts on Deion.
I would have went with Loveland from Michigan.
You're not serious.
Get another pass catcher for my young quarterback.
I mean, look, I get tight end help, but at 9, stop. Wait a second. Brock Bowers went 13th. You're kidding, right? I'm
going with Loveland here.
How about that? All right, I feel better than I thought you were going to crush me with some cold hard facts, and you went tight end at 9. All right, Josh, what do you think of Deion?
I like him. I think he's incredibly unique just from a size perspective. It's kind of like Dallas Turner a year ago in the sense that I want to see him take that next step and become that dominant player that is worthy of top 10 consideration because I think he has that level of athleticism. He moves really well for a guy that's 6'6", almost 350 pounds. So for him to be able to throw that weight around a little bit more and kind of dominate the way that you would want to see, I think is the next step that he has to take. And if he does, then you're talking about one of the better defensive prospects in this class. All
right, Rick, Omar Khan, Spielman, you're up next. Don't ruin the pick for the Steelers at 10.
Yeah, I'm just ruining it out of spite towards you.
I don't know who you take a kicker, I suppose. Who are you taking?
The kicker. No. there's no question where they need to go get help. They need to get another receiver. So to go along with George Pickens, Roman Wilson, I believe, missed first game because he was injured, and I couldn't tell you the other receivers on that roster.
And Jefferson, my guy Calvin Austin III, who you think's too small.
Yes. So I'm going to go with I'm not a huge fan yet of Burke. You know what I'm going to do here?
You can do it.
Burton, no. Travis Hunter, that's it. I'm going with McMillan.
Oh,
Offense.
Oh, I would have taken either Travis or Tedero. I love both of those. Great job.
Thank you. I'll feel better about myself after the show now.
I know. You're softening up, Rick.
The steam coach too on the show. You are. You're like the nicest guy in America.
They gave me a little drugs at the dental office to make me ease the pain. Didn't just rub dirt on it like the Spielman Dental Company would have you do. All right. 10 picks in. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Josh will be starting things off with the New Orleans Saints, who need a lot of things, but not a quarterback because, of course, they have Spencer Rattler. All right. Back right after this.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Wow.
And all day long!
24/7.
All right, Josh. Picks 1 through 10 are in. We had 3 quarterbacks go, if I counted correctly. Quinn Ewers to the Panthers. Who'd you take with the Giants? Oh, Carson, Beck, excuse me. And then Shedeur went to the Raiders at 7. And you're down the clock at number 11 with the New Orleans Saints. What are you doing, Josh?
So I'm looking at the tendencies of New Orleans in the past, what they've typically favored at this particular position. Also looking ahead to the 2025 free agency class, they are slated to potentially lose Chase Young, Peyton Turner, and Tano Passignon. So there's an opportunity there for this defensive front. And for me, Mike L. Williams, pound for pound, I think is the most intriguing edge rusher in this draft class. So I'm going to take him off the board here with the Saints.
All right. I don't hate it. How are you on that, Rick?
I'm good with that one.
Oh, okay. All right. There we go. Progress. All right. Next up, the Chicago Bears. I'm just gonna go with what I feel is the most explosive player. I'm taking Travis Hunter.
Hey,
I'm
boy.
not gonna overcomplicate it. The defense is really good, but you can create packages for them, as Rick has noted. On the other side of the ball, they don't necessarily need more wide receivers, but you can find places for Travis Hunter to help you. At 12, I feel really good about that. All right, Rick, you're now picking for the Minnesota Vikings. How about that?
Yeah, I was looking at D tackle here, but the 2 D tackles I liked are off right now. They extended Phillips, I think, this week for a 2-year deal. So definitely the biggest need is going to be corner. Gilmore, Brian Murphy Jr., Shaq Griffin, they're all older, kind of stop gap type corners. So I'm going to get a corner of the future. They traded Booth this preseason, who did not work out well for them. So I'm going to go with Benjamin Morris, the corner from Notre Dame, who I think is the best man cover corner, most really physical, and I think he'd be a great fit in Flores' off defense.
I don't hate that at all. I like that. All right. Vikings have a corner. Josh, you're picking for the upstart Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who don't need a quarterback.
Why are they upstart?
People were sort of sleeping on them this summer again, even though they keep winning the division. So I guess upstart probably isn't the best word.
Yeah, that's poor word choice.
Yeah, I think they brought back most of their roster from last season, and it actually looked pretty good on the field this past weekend. The offense was really explosive.
Yeah, they're just upstart. So that's nice. I mean, they only got a Hall of Fame receiver and another one that had 150 targets and catches, and they just extended Tristan Wilfs and Antoine Winfield Jr. and Baker Mayfield, and they're upstart. I'm sorry, I don't know what the heck I was thinking.
Do you know what they did in the playoffs last year?
They almost beat the Lions. It was close.
Before that, they trounced Debo's Eagles.
Oh, I know. Yeah, in the wild card game. It was
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's my point. Before people get mad at you, Rick, for being mean.
I'm not being mean. I'm being realistic. They're not upstart.
People were up on the Falcons because of the Kirk Cousins thing, and the defense stunk before they traded for Judon and signed Simmons. And I think people wanted the Falcons to be a thing, and I don't think a lot of people were paying the proper respect to the Buccaneers. So some call it upstart, some call it disrespectful. Either way, Josh, what are you doing to make this team better?
I had a couple of different options that I was considering here. One of them was just selfishly taken by Rick, the pick prior, Benjamin Morrison. So I'm going to go on that explosive side of the ball in the offense. Chris Godwin is tentatively scheduled to be a free agent after the current season. So in an opportunity to replace him, get a little bit more cost efficient, I'm going to go with Luther Burden, the wide receiver from Missouri.
Oh, how do you feel about that, Rick?
I'm all right with it. They like there's a rookie.
Jalen McMillan, yeah.
No, they got McMillan, but there's another kid that was a college free agent that was it Johnson, if I recall, when I was down there for training camp, that really popped out, and they're very excited about him. But I could see this pick.
Oh,
So,
Cameron Johnson.
yeah.
Out of Barton Cowell,
Yes.
North Carolina. Great. Okay. Next up, the Los Angeles Superchargers. Now, I could take a page out of the Rick Spielman playbook and just give Justin Herbert a tight end here. Hayden Hurst is currently the number one. But the other thing that I kept coming back to is that, oh, come on. My computer won't move any slower. Right guard is Trey Pipkins. He's the only hole remaining on that offensive line, as far as I'm concerned. So I have an inclination to draft a tackle currently in college who may have to move inside. So that's what I'm considering. You have any thoughts, Rick?
No, consider away.
So I'm going to take Jonas Avenaya, currently offensive tackle out of Arizona. Josh is shaking his head because he wanted Jonah, didn't you?
Yeah, I like Jonah quite a bit. It doesn't necessarily affect my next pick because the team that I'm picking for, the Browns, are currently set on the right side of the ball. But I think he has the foot speed to stay on the edge as well. I mean, I think he could play tackle in the NFL, but he's a player I like quite a bit. So regardless of where you project him at the next level, I think he's going to be a productive, successful player.
Rick, grade the pick.
I like that a lot because he's going to run the ball, and this kid is a lot like Fuaga last year, in my opinion. Is a big physical, set the tone up front, and with the way Alt played in week one and what they have on the offensive line, you insert this kid, they're going to have could develop into a Detroit Lions type offensive line.
That's high praise. All right.
I thought I was going to get him a little bit later. That's why I was shaking my head, to be clear, but I'm a big fan.
Awesome. I love it. So I'm hearing from Rick, I got an A++. All right, Rick, you're up. Jaguars at 16 or 16.
Jacksonville, I still don't like their defense, especially on the back end. You know, they don't have enough corners, and Darby and, you know, Campbell's a good player. Savage is their Nick, who's been a ham and egger at the neck and safety. He's kind of bounced around a little bit, even when he was up in Green Bay. So I'm going to go with someone that reminds me a lot of Brian Branch, that I think can play Nick, can play free safety, can do a lot for them on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with Malachi Starks.
I like that a lot. That's a good one. Well done. All right, Josh, you are now your Cleveland Browns, and you have
Quarterback.
I was going to say you have trillions of dollars in dead cap staring you in the face, but you need a quarterback. But you may think otherwise. What are you going to do for the Cleveland Browns?
I need a quarterback. I need a left tackle. I don't particularly feel good about the options that are on the board currently in those spots. I've changed my mind about 4 times about the direction I was going to go on this pick. Some of that is related to the picks you guys have made before, taking a couple of guys off the board. I am surprising myself here, and I'm going to go with Ashton Genty, the running back from Boise State.
Can he play quarterback?
He cannot play quarterback. Unfortunately, not much you can do with the dead salary cap hit that is facing the Browns with Deshaun Watson currently. So that does not solve that problem. I think when you look at Nick Chubb, this is probably his final year in Cleveland, just the way things have played out. Jerome Ford, solid running back. I don't know that he's the future. When I look at Genty, he reminds me a little bit of Jahmyr Gibbs coming out of the draft because of his ability to make an impact in the pass game as well. For me, before Gibbs had even transferred to Alabama, when he was at Georgia Tech, I had him in my way too early mock draft. I thought he was a first-round pick. He ended the cycle as my number 9 prospect overall. And, of course, the Lions saw it similarly. So I'm taking a player that I see in a similar vein as a Jahmyr Gibbs at this point in time, and we're going to have to figure out the left tackle and the quarterback situation in other ways.
So, Rick, 2 questions. Is 17 too high for Genty? And number 2, can you work around the salary cap implications of moving on from Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, that will be an issue if they do decide to move on from him. But I think Genty has separated himself so far, on what he did against Oregon and what he did in Georgia Southern, with his 6 touchdowns. So I could see him. I don't know if he's as fast as Gibbs was coming out, and I don't know if he's the same receiver. Like, I don't think I can envision him. I don't envision him lining up in a slot like a McCaffrey or something, but he can catch the ball out of the backfield. But this guy is a pretty dynamic runner. So I know it's like in vogue and everybody gets mad when you take a running back in the first round, but this kid's a pretty good player. They can put points on the board for you on the offensive side.
Is there an argument that he makes Deshaun Watson better just because Deshaun Watson has to do less?
Okay, that's what makes you feel good there, buddy.
I'm just trying to figure out a solution to the worst trade in recent history. All right, next up, Seattle Seahawks at 18. I think this is pretty clear for me. Abe Lucas can't stay healthy, unfortunately. He has a knee. They drafted him and Charles Cross in that class together, and those guys started right away and were pretty successful when they're both healthy, but that's been a concern. So I'm going to take LSU right tackle Emory Jones. I think the offensive line needs to continue to improve. They have some pieces in place. Maybe edge rusher is a consideration here, but I would rather have Emory Jones. Got off to a little rough start in week 1. I haven't watched him since, but I think he's going to be a really good player. Rick, what do you think?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cam Ward's still out there. Rick's not a fan. Matthew Stafford played out of his mind in week 1. He doesn't look like he's retiring anytime soon. You're picking for the Rams at 19, Rick. What are you doing?
Well, I'm going to go. I looked at their depth chart, and they did a pretty good job bottling up the Lions passing attack, but I still think they need corner help here. They got Durant, Tre'Davious White, who knows how long he's going to last before he goes. And if you look in the back end of it, it's a bunch of guys that I don't know their names yet, a bunch of rookies, and they've kept 15 rookies on the roster. So I think that they need a corner here. I'm going to go with a corner, and I'm going to go with Denzel Burke from Ohio State.
Oh, interesting. So Will Howard's gone. Benjamin Morrison is gone. Travis is gone. Travis Hunter, and now Burke. All right. You okay with that, Josh?
Yeah, that was going to be my pick next. So to say I'm good with it would be an understatement. I think he's a good player, really sound, and somebody that fits right into what the Rams want to do.
All right. The world is your oyster. It's the Green Bay Packers here at 20. Who are you taking, Josh?
Again, going to have to go in a little bit of a different direction than what I had initially expected, but that is part of the draft. So I'm going to take Abdul Carter, the pass rusher from Penn State. The linebacker room there in Green Bay, they look for the athleticism, but I think somebody that could possibly step right in for what Preston Smith does for that team. Gives them a little bit more versatility there in that spot. So I'm just going to choose to get younger there for a team that is potentially slated to lose Eric Stokes after the season. That's why cornerback was on the list. Center Josh Myers is a free agent, and then Tadaro Slayton was a free agent as well. So they're going to have some pieces that they could potentially have to replace once we get to free agency.
Abdul Carter. Hey, Debo, hit the edge button for me real quick before we go to break. I want to make sure my guy's still there. All right, Michael Williams did get drafted. Who took Michael Williams?
I took him for the Saints.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I was about to do a Rick Spielman watching the Eagles take Jalen Reagor dance if Michael Williams was still there and you passed on him. But instead, Rick, hang around to see which edge rusher I take for the Falcons.
Why are you taking an edge rusher? They just got Judon.
And they have Braylon Trice. But did you see them play? They couldn't stop Justin frickin' Fields.
I'm just telling you. This.
All right, well, here's the thing. I'll think about it over the break, and then you can watch me still take an edge rusher.
A Quiet Place Day 1 is now streaming on Paramount Plus. It's thrilling, terrifying. It will make your heart pound out of your chest. A Quiet Place Day 1, now streaming.
All right, we're back. You know what's funny? I had this thing with the Falcons where I think last year when we did the three-round mock draft, I took like 15 edge rushers. I think we made Debo go back and cut it out. All right. You don't like edge rusher here, Rick?
No.
Who are you taking? I think offensively they're where they need to be. Maybe depth at wide receiver, but how many skill position players are you going to draft in the first round? All right. I'm doing what I think is in my best interest.
Selfish, as always.
Devo, hit the edge button one more time so I can double check. Maybe I'll mix it up here. And then hit the LB button. Yeah, so it's down to two guys. I'm going to take Harold Perkins here out of LSU because you can move him around. He's a little more versatile than the other guy I was thinking about. So let's take Harold Perkins out of LSU and use him as a chess piece. Take that, Rick. Here we come. We coming, to quote Coach Prime.
Oh God, you took the cheese there. You
Go for it.
Yep.
All right, quarterback still on the board, and you're picking for the Bengals. What are you going to do, Rick?
Oh, this is definitely edge. So it's you got Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson's looking to ask to be traded. I don't know if they'll be back next year. He wants a new contract. Nick Scorton to me is the
man. I was going to take him.
I know. That's why you don't listen to me. That's yeah. Let me take Scorton from Texas A&M. That's a no-brainer.
By way of Purdue. Yeah, he had a pretty good start to the season.
It's one of those times in a draft meeting when you're high-fiving everybody because they didn't take your guy and he falls to you right there, like Justin Jefferson.
Debo, you know anything about that?
Which year was that?
I don't even remember. It was so long.
2020, right?
Ryan, do not take the cheese, buddy. You took the cheese.
I fell for it. That's all right. I love Harold Landry. We're gonna win with Harold Landry. All right, you're up, Josh. Pick 23 for the New York Football Jets. They had some concerns, oddly enough, on the defensive side of the ball in that week 1 opening loss to the 49ers. I thought Aaron Rodgers looked pretty good for all else considered. What do you want to do for the Jets here?
Yeah, edge was a position that I was considering as well with the ongoing Hassan Reddick saga. Of course, Will McDonald IV has not stepped into that role yet. But I'm going to go to the interior and take Ohio State defensive tackle Tyleik Williams to pair with Quinn Williams.
Nice. You're still a Tyleik guy, right, Rick?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
All right. It's a wild world we're living in where the Jets have to get better on defense before they address the offense. So Tyleik is gone. Scorton is gone. Next up, the Miami Dolphins. All right. What do they need? I was thinking I was picking for the Bills. I was all excited about that. And then Miami hits me here. So let's see. This is going to sound crazy, but Debo, hit the wide receiver button just to see what we got. All right. I'm going to take tight end Colston Loveland. Take
Okay.
that, Rick.
There you go.
I was taking your cheese and throwing it right back at you, sir.
Yeah. Well, I don't need a receiver. There's plenty of receivers left in this draft.
Colston Loveland out of Michigan, of course. All right. You are the Buffalo Bills, Rick. What are you doing to pick 25?
Yeah. I don't want receiver right now. So I've got to take the next best corner on the board. You know, they got Benford, Rasul Douglas as Kyer Elam. Are they going to exercise his 5th-year option? You know, he's played better, but is he considered a first-round bust yet? So I think they need to add to their young secondaries. They revamped this secondary. So Takario Davis from Arizona, I think would be a perfect fit.
He is long. All right. I didn't know if you had any more on that. I think he's like 6'3" or something. He's insane. Insanely tall for the cornerback position.
I think length is something that Buffalo prioritizes in the secondary as well. So, of course, Takario has quite a bit of that, being 6'3" in that neighborhood. So quite a bit of length there for a team that covets.
Did you see I took Burke before him just because I knew that it was coming back around to me?
It's like you've done this before.
No.
Interesting. All right, next up, Baltimore Ravens. Josh, they have some offensive line concerns. Some of that's youth, some of that's other stuff. But what do you think about this Baltimore team at 26?
I wouldn't say that I'm typically comfortable with someone that is 6'8" playing guard. So I love Kevin Zeitler. I think he's had a fantastic career. Of course, moving on to the Lions was a good pickup for them. I think he's sorely missed in that Ravens offensive line room. I'm going to take Tyler Booker, the offensive guard out of Alabama.
How happy Rick is. That's a big boy move, Rick. You okay with that?
I'm good with that one.
Well, interestingly, as we look at the final 6 picks here, none of these teams need quarterbacks. So I feel like we're running out of quarterback steam, which is curious because we have a guy Cam Ward, we have a guy Garrett Nussmeier, and that may be a situation as we move through this where some other team has to trade up. All right. That was pick 26 for the Ravens. Oh, I'm sorry, Debo. Yeah, that was you took Tyler Booker. Right, Josh?
Yes. Yep.
The interior offensive lineman out of Alabama. And then the Cowboys are on the clock. All right. So they're getting Deron Bland back. They got Trevon Diggs back. He was good in week 1, as Josh can attest after watching that whooping. When's the last time the Browns had such a demoralizing loss in the Kevin Stefanski era? It feels like that predates Stefanski by a good amount. It feels like the Hugh. What's Hugh's last name? I always forget.
Jackson?
The Hugh Jackson era.
No, I would say you don't have to go that far back at all. I think you just go back to the playoffs last year against Houston. I think that was a pretty demoralizing loss in and of itself on both sides of the ball. So I appreciate the compliment. It sounded great. The Browns have done better recently, but unfortunately don't have to go back too far in the memory.
All right. That was still a sore spot, Rick. I didn't realize he was not messing around with that. All right. Cowboys are up. I know they signed CeeDee Lamb. They still have a ton of issues at the wide receiver position. I'm going to take Emeka Egbuka.
Good pick.
Oh, wide receiver out of Ohio State. I think he's going to have a breakout year. I think he's fully healthy. And Rick, you say he's a good kid, right?
Great kid.
Awesome. All right. Speaking of great, Houston Texans.
Yeah, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here.
Nitty-gritty.
So, Debo, can I see safeties? So I am looking at, they've addressed a lot of needs between trades, free agency, draft. They really try to address this this safety and corner position through the draft, getting Kalen Bullock with the 3rd, Lassiter, Kamari Lassiter with the 2nd pick last year in the 2nd round. Bullock in the 3rd. Jimmy Ward's getting long in the tooth. Derek Stingley needs another. They could use depth at corner here. Let me go look at corner real quick, Debo. Ugh. Go back to safety, and I'm going to go a very good football player. I'm going to go with Kevin Winston Jr.
Wow. I haven't watched Kevin Winston Jr. yet. Get a scouting report?
Yeah, I think he is a smart, instinctive football player. I don't know enough to talk fully on him. When can't remember who I was watching. I was just peeking at him, but he's going to be a guy that I think's going to continue to rise up some draft boards.
Have you watched him, Josh?
It's been a little while. I have watched him. I actually like Xavier Nwankpa from Iowa quite a bit as well.
Okay.
I think he's a well-rounded player, someone that is explosive, capable of making plays from the secondary. But yeah, it's going to be a better safety class than we've seen here in the last couple of years.
Great. I'm looking forward to that. All right, Josh, don't mess it up. You're picking for Debo's Eagles. What are you doing?
Well, to no one's surprise, I'm looking along the offensive and the defensive lines, not only for tendency, but looking forward to the future. I think that's an area where they could possibly look to gain some reinforcements. Looking at the board now, we've kind of depleted the offensive linemen a little bit. So I think I'm going to stay on defense, and I'm going to take an edge rusher. You've got Brandon Graham there, of course. At some point he's going to retire. Who knows when that is going to be, but it is coming. I'm going to take between two players, but I'm going to go with Landon Jackson.
Oh, you mother.
From Arkansas.
Golly. Dan Campbell's about to run that card up too, Rick. It's a good pick. Dang it to heck. Oh, yeah.
That's who you wanted?
Yeah. He feels like an Aaron Glenn type guy, Dan Campbell type guy, Chris Spielman type guy. Instead, what are we doing? Yeah. Hit the edge button real quick, Debo, and then Levi Owens-Enrique is starting to play a little bit, Rick. I was finally glad to see him do some things. I don't know how you feel about him, but he seemed to be making an impact in the game for the first time in quite a while.
Yeah. He's kind of been a bust a little bit.
Yeah.
But they inherited him, and he seems to be starting to come along.
All right, Debo, hit the interior defensive line too. Let's see what's going on there real quick. All right. I should take Howard Cross just to get you going, Rick. I love Howard Cross, but we got to find out how much he weighs. He's a fantastic player. All right, I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan. I wanted Landon very badly, but Josh ruined that plan. So I'll go Kenneth Grant, interior defensive lineman. Is it a reach, Rick? Maybe. Is it early? Yes.
DJ Reader. So, and they have to sign the
Aleem the Dream.
Yeah, McNeil.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would have went with one of the Ohio State edge rushers.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Golly, Landon's such a big player that he feels like.
Now you're putting too much thought into this.
Okay. All right.
You're overthinking and making mistakes all the way through this first round.
Some would say I'm an upstart drafter.
God.
All right, next up, speaking of the opposite of upstart, grizzled veteran Rick Spielman picking for the 49ers at 31.
Go offensive tackle, Debo. Oh boy, here it comes. I am going to go. I could go corner here. I don't like the corners. I still think McKivitz, although he played pretty good in week one, he's still inconsistent. Who was really stuck out? Pooney from Kansas.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Really good at right guard, played really well. So I'm going to say they're going to continue to build on that offensive line. And I'm going with Ursery from Minnesota, the left tackle that will move over to the right side for them.
You know, it's funny, Rick. That's one of the names submitted by one of the viewers/listeners for us to watch.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, then I can't talk about them. So we do official whatever.
Yeah, we'll do an official. So you have to come back to hear the
5-star coming out. We're doing a 5-star review on them.
We're doing a 5-star on the 5-star review. Love it. Worlds are colliding. Okay. Not going to mad offensive line for the 49ers. Next up, the final pick in the first round, the Kansas City Chiefs are drafting Dominic Raiola. What are you going to do here, Josh?
I'm going to go a corner here would be nice to replace L'Jarius Sneed, but as Rick has already alluded to, not thrilled with the options that are available. I'm going to take a little bet on the upside and go to the defensive line. And I'm going to take Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss.
Okay. We talked about him during the pre-draft process too. I think I liked him a little later, but not too much later, and a lot can change in the next 224 days, Rick. All right, to recap here, 3 quarterbacks. That's it. I think, Rick, that's been your over-under, 3. So we had Quinn go number 1 overall, sort of a surprise, but he's playing well. Carson Beck went number 2 to the Giants. Quinn went to the Panthers, of course. And then finally, top 7 picks. Shedeur Sanders went 7th to the Raiders, and that was it. Inexplicably, the Browns took a running back and not a quarterback, but that's why Josh is going to get fired in 224 days.
Plenty of time to fix things.
Plenty of time to fix things. Debo, how would you grade the mock draft overall? How do we do?
I really only cared about Landon Jackson, and I like that pick by Josh.
All right, there you go. That's it. Episode 179 in the books.
Brown noser, Josh. Brown noser.
Hey, Josh knows who writes the checks, Rick. You can learn something from that. Thanks to Josh for joining us, as always. Thanks to my guy, Rick. Thanks to Debo for producing us. Thanks, you guys who watch and listen and comment. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday.